I was only interested in writing new material. I've always wanted to be a composer. To me, Cream was like a vehicle for my composing.
The success of what was becoming blues rock in Britain in 1968 meant that even emerging progressive bands could sail into the album charts under the blues flag. Jethro Tull's Ian Anderson factored an unusual choice of instrument into the blues equation.
It was almost like, well, Eric doesn't play the flute, and it was about being a bigger fish in a small pool, you know, that you could actually stand out of the crowd a little bit as a flute player at the Marquee Club doing the blues, because no one else was playing it. But, you know, very quickly Jethro Tull was not just a blues band.
That was Anderson's plan, but Tull's management was uneasy about the mix.
This is just not an instrument you should be playing in a blues band. You should, push the guitar player, Mick Abrahams, get him to stand at the front and do more guitar and let him do more of the singing. And why don't you learn to play a little rhythm piano and stand at the back?
The band was formed on the basis that you need a guitar player in the band that can play blues, because blues is the thing, and this was purely a commercial adventure. You know, the blues was the essential part then of Jethro Tull. If you can play one note in a 12-bar solo and make somebody cry or laugh or all the lovely emotions that are associated with music and that kind of, that's truly, to me, the blues. You know, it's almost like a prayer.
I had never any desire to be a third-rate copyist of a music form that I had such respect for then and do today. One of the great blues pieces of all time, not terribly well known, is J.B. Lenoir's Alabama Blues. When he's singing about race riots, well, for me to sing that song would be patently absurd because it is so deeply personal.
Ian had his own plan. Ian had his own plan for music. So my influence, it was like there were two Jethro Tulls.
After a battle of guitar versus flute and blues rock versus progressive rock, Mick Abrahams left Jethro Tull, just as they hit the big time.
You know, so snobby or demanding some kind of intellectual outlet beyond this simple and vital music form. Actually, it is both of those things.
It was this simple and vital music form that bagged a bunch of trophies for British blues rock artists at the Melody Maker Awards in 1969. Some thought the blues had become a license to print money and guarantee international fame.
There is, of course, the element of can blue men sing the whites? You know, people start off trying to copy people that they love. And then the good thing is if you recognise why you love them and try to pinpoint all the things that are great about those people and then incorporate it into your own personality, and so it becomes becoming original, you know.
Quit hanging around in bars, sold off all my green guitars, even got half the money back on my BMW car, but you're still waiting.
The essence of the blues is is the expression of a person's social and spiritual condition.
But I'm still trying to flag a ride.
Eventually try and recognize it in yourself, and if it comes out sounding like Whitey playing the blues, I mean, as long as it's got that recognition, I think that it works.
But I ain't getting no replies.
And it was working. Another day, another blues group success. This was the age of Fleetwood Mac, 10 Years After, and Chicken Shack, Savoy Brown, the Groundhogs, and Taste. They provided the soundtrack to arguments about allegiance to the blues versus originality, authenticity versus theft, the accompaniment to white middle-class guilt.
I got the Fleetwood Mac, Chicken Shack, John Mayle, Can't Fail Blues. I got the Jethro Tull, Belly Full, Savoy Brown, Reach Me Down Blues. I got the Fleetwood Mac, Chicken Shack, John Mayle, Can't Fail Blues. From the deep, deep south of the River Thames, bottleneck guitar is the latest trend. I'm gonna earn more money than I can spend. I got the blues. I've been waiting so long to be where I'm going. In the sunshine of the bay.
Under the steam created by Cream, British blues was now a runaway train, pulling rock, jazz and psychedelia along with it.
When we were actually outgrossing everybody else put together, you know, we were just jamming. And I always like to say improvising because it sounds better.
Eric Clapton joined up with two jazz players, you know, so naturally jazz players improvise and they stretch things out, you know. You get a 10-minute number is kind of normal. So Eric learned a lot about improvisation and taking it to new areas, taking his guitar to new places as a result of him, you know, working in tandem with two of Britain's greatest jazz players.
Like John Mayle kind of always tried to reconstruct a sort of a Chicago blues sound, note for note, basically. He's a kind of trad jazz version of the blues. What we were trying to do was to use the language of the blues to create a new kind of unique and original and personal music. Nothing to do with Chicago or the Delta, except that that's where the inspiration and the actual language comes from.
British blues had arrived at another crossroads, one that now signposted hard rock, progressive rock and jazz rock. At the height of their popularity, Cream decided to call it a day and go their separate ways. They said goodbye at the Royal Albert Hall on the 26th of November 1968. The devil expected payment for all the adulation and unforeseen international success. Fame and fortune also proved too much for guitarist Peter Green. Down at his crossroads, he met LSD, abandoned the blues, and departed Fleetwood Mac. But not before telling it like it was, for him.
Shall I tell you about my life? They say I'm a man of the world. I've flown across every tide. I've seen lots of pretty girls.
Peter's voice was as important as his guitar playing, and he could break your heart.
I guess I've got everything I need.
We just didn't realize, because he was sort of a happy guy. And yet you listen to the words like man of the world and, you know.
But I just wish I'd never been born.
He's way more sensitive than one could possibly have known. The pain that we found out that he was going through was put into a lot of the stuff that he did in those 3 years. In truth, when Peter left, we had departed from being a pure blues-based band, but we departed with the lessons learned.
But some British blues bands didn't attend lessons. They were too busy frantically chasing gym slips.
You don't just, as you develop your musical expertise, start churning out, you know, music that looks blacker on the page with a lot of notes, blah, 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 blah. It's still to remember those really great lessons taught to us by the likes of B.B. King. You know, less is more.
I think that's blues. You know, diddly diddly diddly. Not blues really. Blues is do 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 diddle do. You know, I lost my baby. You know, where am I going to live? It's more heartfelt. It isn't bash it out. You know, as loud as you can. And play your lead guitar as fast as you can with as many notes. That's jerking off for me.
And I know a lot of those cats, and I realised that a lot of them didn't really want to go that way. But the business was growing and growing and growing, and the money and managements were coming in, and you know, I mean, what do you want to do in this world? You know. Why did you start it? How do you want to finish it? Now that's the blues.
Lead guitar, Jimmy Page.
Finishing it, or starting it all over again, fell to a pheromone-fueled new Fab Four.
Zeppelin got a lot of criticism early on for sort of thieving things from Willie Dixon or whatever, but you know, but everybody did. They, like the very best of British bands of that era, took it to a new place.
That place was the Stadium, where in the 70s, British blues was subsumed in the heady mix.
How many more times? Treat me the way that you wanna do.
Yeah, when I say home, I don't mean the USA.
But what about the black American blues artists who personally brought their music to these shores and lodged it firmly in the hearts of British audiences and musicians? Champion Jack Dupree never went back. He settled in Halifax and married a Yorkshire girl.
Since I come into England and found England was a heavenly place for me, I don't care who else find it difficult. But to me, it's heaven. When you leave from slavery and go into a place where you're free, I couldn't go back there because anybody spit on me, I'd kill them. Everybody here know me, including the police, and so I'm known by everybody here, and this is home for me.
When we began playing the blues in England in the early 60s, we're trying to recreate something we heard on record. That's the best you can do. But I would say that whether we were authentic or not, we all came to it with great love.
It's a living and breathing expression of people's suffering and desire. And that's what the blues is. It's not a kind of music that the Brits nicked and sold back to America, although that happened. It's a woman, it's a drum, it's everything like that. It's much more important than something you can even sell or put a label on. Much more, it's our humanity itself.
As to whether we can ever begin to emulate the people who really began it, the Robert Johnsons, the howling wolves, the muddy waters. No,